Howdy folks, Starly here from Stellar Dynamics Solutions, helping you learn how Microsoft Dynamics Business Central can help launch your business to the next level. Well, we're outside. Spring is here and I'm so excited to be back outdoors in the sunshine enjoying these glorious rays. Figured I'd bring you all along with me. Before I get into the content for today, which is going to be about sales orders, I just wanted to say thank you really quick to all of you who've been watching my videos so far. I have decided to teach myself the art of videography and editing. I'm loving the creative autonomy that gives me. However, your girl has a learning curve, so bear with me. I'm open to whatever feedback or comments that you might have as it relates to either just making videos or my content. Like if you want to see something specific, if you want to look at nav, if you want to journey back into the past, we can do that. We'll start talking about EDI in the near future as well, so that's on the list. But I just wanted to say thank you, and I'm playing around. I'm having a good time. I think technology should and can be fun. So if you have a cocktail, send one this way. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk today about the sales order. And I think this is going to be the beginning of a series on just the sales order life cycle. So we'll talk about sales quotes and posted sales shipments. So what happens after your order ships, posted sales invoices, and all of the functionality that goes along with those. So stay tuned. We're going to head back indoors without the bird sounds, although those are quite nice right now. So stay tuned and we'll get right into it. All right, folks, so we are at the home page, and we're going to use the handy drop-down menus here to navigate to sales orders. And I'm in the Cronus database. These sales orders I did not create myself. That doesn't really matter a whole lot. We're just going to do kind of a high-level overview of the sales order document. If anyone's interested in me doing a video on actually how to create a sales order from start to finish, then let me know. I may do one anyway, but anywho, so we have some tabs here, so let's review those really quickly. We have the General tab, which gives you pretty much your core customer data, so who you're selling to. If you have a dropship business or you are a merchant that's selling directly to the public, you could technically have an infinite number of customers. There's no limitation on that. But for customers that aren't repeat business, we probably want to look at some different ways to store that information so that it doesn't like balloon the size of your database. So generally speaking, we'll consider this as though you are a manufacturer selling to a merchant or to some sort of distributor. And so we have your sell to customer name and address. This is generally speaking where the invoice is going to go. The posting date, which defaults to the order date, and you do have setups available to modify what posting date is populated when you actually fulfill the order and want to post an invoice. You probably are not going to want the posting date to be some historical date. You'll want it to be representative of today, whatever that is. So order date auto-populates. Due date is going to reflect the invoice due date, which is also tied to the posting date. All of these values can change. You can modify them based on whatever your needs are. Requested delivery date and promised delivery date. Requested delivery date is a default value. And I should say also that most things within Business Central are based on a delivery date and not a shipment date, which is a little different. So depending on your business model, we can talk about some ways to kind of make that work better for you if you're driven by shipment date activity versus delivery date activity. External document number is where your customer's purchase order number would go. You have opportunities here to populate a salesperson code. So if you have multiple sales persons in your organization or groups. However, there are responsibility centers here that you can create, which would speak more to group setups versus individuals. If you have campaigns running or promotions and you want to track that with various campaign codes, then you can do that here as well. Everything on the left-hand side, though, will default from the customer card, which The customer here is A Datum Corporation. Want to show you really quick on the information pane. You can see these are called cubes here, and it gives you kind of an at a glance view of what's going on with this particular customer. But by clicking on these, you can also navigate to the documents. In this particular case, there's no return orders, but it's just kind of a shortcut to navigate to the document if you need to do that. We'll look at invoices really quick. There's a couple of them in here. We won't talk about invoices today, but I just wanted to show you the navigational shortcut that you have here from the sales order. From the operational side, having those little shortcuts are very helpful, just to keep users from having to click around too much. It's a huge time savings just in terms of a relationship management or customer engagement, customer experience management perspective. The less time a user is, on the phone or engaged with a customer, the better. The more efficiently they can operate, the better, generally speaking. So here you have access to your customer number as well. So if you want to click on that, you can get into the A Datum Corporation customer card. My internet is dragging a little bit, so my apologies here. But I believe we looked at the customer card already, so I won't go over that with you. But again, just wanted to show you the shortcut. And it'll give you metrics on the customer as well, available credit limit. Depending on your role as you're looking at the sales order, some of this stuff is not going to be terribly helpful or relevant for you, but it just depends. Total quantity to ship is going to be a value that's on the sales lines, which we're going to look at in a minute. The item number here and the required quantity are also sales line values that we can't see because of where I'm positioned on the screen, but it'll make sense in a second. Availability, so shipment date, as I mentioned, this value is something that is available on the line. And the line, I guess, let me just show you really quick. The sales order document is divided into two sections. You have header section, which is everything that is in these tabs with the exception of this lines section. So you have two categories. You have header and lines, and that's how Business Central and Nav, if you're an old schooler, handles the information within a document. So as you navigate through the different lines, the values on this side here will change, as you can see. These other lines are blank, so that's why there's nothing popping in here. But that's how this section of the information pane works. And then scrolling further down, you can see the unit of measure and quantity per unit of measure. You'll also see again the item number, your costing basis, which we'll do a different video on costing. It's kind of a complex topic, and I'm not super heavy on the financial side, but we can definitely touch on it. And then it does calculations for you based on your costing methods, what your anticipated profit would be. So jumping back over here, I'm going to minimize this information pane, and we'll jump back over here. So like I was saying, all of the information on the header portions of the document are going to default from the customer card. So that's where your email address is coming from, your contact. Over here, your document date is the date that this document was created. And so on the lines here, you have some options. So you have the type of line item that this is. You have different options available to you here. Most of the time, I should say, not anytime, but you can, anytime you see this drop down arrow, that means you have some options to select. And so here you have comment lines available to you, GL accounts or general ledger accounts, items, resources, fixed assets, charges. All of these are types of items or entries that you can set up. So this one's an item, and it gives you the item description. Once you enter the item number, and I guess I'll just show you really quick, you don't have to select from the drop-down menu, but you can also type in. So I can type in item if I want to, or select from the drop-down menu. I apologize, guys. My internet is going terribly slow, which is making this quite painful. Let's pretend this is a comment, actually, because I like this option here. Oops. What is happening? So we can enter a new comment if we would like to. You can choose a comment code, or you can leave that information blank and just freehand type in whatever you'd like to say about this comment. And so here, location codes, a lot of the fields, if you're doing a comment line, aren't really going to be relevant, but let's jump back up to the item line. This item description will default from the item card. So if we use the drop down menu, you can see that here. And the base unit of measure, there's some other information that's specific to the item card setup that will auto-populate in the line when you enter that. If you have a location that is designated to ship this particular item, then it would auto-populate. Or if you had a location that is designated for this customer, it would auto-populate here. So in either case, it's not applicable. However, we can go ahead and assign this East location code. And this is just a little pop-up that tells you your work date is today, which is... Actually, today's not April 8th, 2020. I am working in the past because that's how I roll. But this is basically just giving you a heads up that your shipment date is before. And you can go and manually modify the shipment date. So the location code is going to represent which warehouse is going to fulfill your order. Quantity is how many units. Quantity to assemble to order is basically speaking to how many units needing to be assembled. There's... a setup in Business Central called assembly orders, or quantity to assemble, or I guess the assembly ordering policy. Basically, if you have a bundle or a kit, I kind of spoke about this in my items video, and you have a collection of different items, whether they're components or they're standalone items that you just kind of bundle together, those would go into this quantity to assemble to order column. Assemblies or kits are a little bit more of a complicated topic, so I won't spend any time on that really, but that's what that is in a nutshell. Unit of measure code will default from either if your customer has a cross-reference setup that's unique to them, or if the item has a default unit of measure, which generally that's the case, you'll go ahead and populate that there if it doesn't automatically populate. Your unit price is going to default from the item or from your customer, right? So there's a lot of overlap here with regard to units of measure, items, prices, anything that you feel like probably could be unique to your customer, just depending on your business model and how you sell items. You're going to have the option to either take the item's default or your customer's default. So that's really cool. Tax area code is only applicable if it's applicable to your business, right? So if you are, if you're a manufacturer and you don't charge tax, right, because you're selling to a merchant, then you wouldn't have a tax area code. But if you're selling maybe to a merchant who's in Canada and you have Canadian taxes that you need to charge, then you would have Canadian tax code set up. And these are all user defined. You can decide which tax codes and what you want those to look like. Line discounts are going to be applicable if you are offering discounts, and you can do that at the line level, or you can offer an invoice discount, which is a little further down. So if you do have taxes applicable, those will be calculated based on your setup, inclusive of your unit price, and then you get your amount, your total amount here for the line, which is reflective of your total quantity. And then you have your amount excluding tax here and your amount including tax here. So quantity to ship, and also I know I'm moving really, really quickly, guys, and I talk fast, so double whammy. If you have questions, definitely leave them in the comments, and I will address them, or shoot me an email. What I wanted to point out is anytime you hover over a field, if you're not quite sure what it is, Business Central does a really good job of explaining what the fields mean. So you won't get this on every single field. Sometimes you'll just get the name of the field and then learn more, which if you click on it, it'll take you to Microsoft's website and any related documentation that's available for it really should be related to the page, the field that you're on. But in some cases, it'll take you to a page that kind of just has a general overview of what's going on that page, and not necessarily specific to this field. So quantity to ship, this is how many we are planning to ship. We have quantity shipped, which is appropriately blank in this case since we have not shipped this sales order. Quantity to invoice will match initially anyway your quantity to ship value. Now both of these I want to point out are you can modify them because let's say you have a customer that does partial shipments, right? And they sent you a blanket order for 100 pieces. Blanket order is a bad example. We'll talk about blanket orders later. But let's say for this particular order, they sent you a line item for 100 units. And we can just kind of play with that a little bit really quick here. But you know that you are only going to fulfill half of that now and then half of it later. So if what you want to release to the warehouse right now is only 50 units to ship, then you modify your quantity to ship. And then when the warehouse goes to create their document, which we'll talk about warehousing in another video, that's all they will see. And then once those 50 units ship, the remaining balance of 50 will pop in here, and then you'll see quantity shipped and quantity invoiced values of 50, which reflect what the warehouse has already done. All right, so you have your planned delivery and planned shipment dates. Now, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, right? Because how can your planned shipment, I mean, it's possible, I guess, but your planned shipment date and your planned delivery dates, these are kind of arbitrary just because this is a new order that we really haven't done anything with yet. Also, these values are configurable based on shipping setup. So you can make your planned delivery dates X number of days into the future if you'd like to do that. Let's see. All right, so these fields back here are going to be more specific to EDI and demand planning if you're using Lanham's demand planning product. So moving further down, you can see subtotals, etc. for the entire order. And then we're getting into the next tab, which is Invoice Details. So you have different currency codes that you can set up or go with the defaults from Business Central. Excuse me. You can have your payment terms code set up. I don't want to do anything with that. Payment terms code set up, and you can again use the defaults or create your own based on whatever your business structure looks like. You can have different department codes or customer group codes. There's lots of ways to track your revenue activity, guys. You can put your sales in nice, neat little buckets that are specific to a geographic region, that are specific to a customer group, sales group, production group. You have lots of buckets that you can create and allocate revenue streams to. So that's really cool. Tax liable. So this particular customer, right? Or you can also do tax liable off and on based on an order basis as well. It doesn't have to be specific to a customer, but let's say, a Datum Corporation sometimes, fulfills orders out of Canada, and sometimes they fulfill orders within the U.S. So therefore, in some cases, you'll have tax liable true, and in other cases, it will be not true, right? So you do have that flexibility. You have the shipping and billing section here. Your ship to is the very first field that I want to call your attention to. Your default is the sell to address. So again, depending on your business model, that may not be appropriate, especially in a dropship environment. That probably is not going to be how you set up your sales order. So you can switch to alternate shipping address, or you can switch to, sorry. My internet again is lagging. But if you have an alternate shipping address, that's going to reach into the ship to address table that's attached to the customer card. And so if you have a variety, or if your customer has a variety of different ship to locations, maybe distribution centers, maybe store locations, you can set all of those addresses up here. Also, if you're trading information via EDI, this table here will work with Lanham's EDI product. Lanham EDI is kind of my bias, so you'll hear me talk about that a lot. Oh, one more thing. You can also use the custom address section here, which will allow you to manually populate address information here if you would like to do that. So your bill to is the default as well. Location code here. So really these choices are going to pop in at the header level if there is a default at the customer level, right? If there's not, then you would either have to do some sort of customization to populate the location code here to match your sales line, or just populate it manually. Your shipment date should default from your sales lines, but that's not what's happening here. So I think I probably in times past have already modified this to some degree, this sales order. Shipping advice partial. So this is basically a rule that tells Business Central it's okay to post a partial shipment for this sales order. Otherwise, I only want to ship it complete, right? So if you try to post a partial quantity from the sales line, right, in our 50 versus 100 example, it won't allow you to do that. It'll give you an error because it wants you to post the entire 100. Let's see. So we have shipment methods here, and you can use whatever is set up in the system, but basically the shipment method code is going to speak more to how you're paying for it or how the customer is paying for it. And then the agent is going to speak to the actual carrier itself. And then the agent service is going to be the service level. So ground, air, ocean, that sort of thing. Your package tracking number will populate here. Manually, that's how this is set up. There's no automation, so you would need some sort of add-on like Lanham's eShip. Again, I'm partial to Lanham, so that's the product that we have built in. But otherwise, if you don't have that, your warehouse process is going to be fairly manual without a customization to automate it. And so the expectation is that you come back here and put your tracking number in. Terribly inefficient. But again, depending on your business model, that you may not need any automation to tackle that. So it's flexible, and which is a good thing. It's not forcing functionality down your throat that you don't need, right? So prepayment, this is really only relevant if you have some sort of prepayment agreement with your customer. And so this defines those terms, right? So if they're going to pay X percentage prior to the order shipping, or X percentage prior to the invoice date, then you would quantify all of that here. In the Procurement tab, this is only specific to Lanham's demand planning product. And then similarly here, the eShip tab. Some of what is on the eShip tab, like shipping agent code and shipping agent service, that's redundant, but that's okay. It's part of the eShip product. eShip is also going to give you functionality related to rate shopping, right? So this is not a video about eShip, but I did want to point that out. There is a lot of additional functionality that you can add in to the Business Central product, which makes it a really, really robust ERP system, even beyond, the native out-of-box functionality. So if we go up into process, create bill of lading and rate shop, that is specific to the eShip piece. Let's see, release just means that you are releasing this order to the warehouse. So that would change the status of this sales order from open, which is what it is now, which is why this is grayed out, to release. And then once it's released, that means the warehouse can see it and fulfill that order. Posting is just specific to literally posting the sales order. You would create posted sales shipments and posted sales invoices, or one or the other. And we'll talk about posting in another video I mentioned earlier, doing a life cycle review, I think. Prepare, so you can copy document. I really like this feature. It makes things a lot more efficient for a user. If you want to create multiple sales orders off of this, as an example, let's say a customer sends in 15 different POs and they're all pretty much the same, other than maybe their delivery or shipment date requirements are different, or there's a quantity difference on each of them. This feature makes it such that you can just copy, and then just modify the few variables that you need to modify. So on the order, you have statistics here. This gives you some really beneficial costing information, a little bit more detailed, kind of gives you an heads up on what your expectations should be. So I won't go into all of this detail, but just wanted to kind of point you to it. On the shipping tab, you'll get your net weight and your quantity. Also, there was volume up here somewhere, I think. Nope, I lied, sorry. I was thinking about net weight. So approvals I love as well. If you have approvals set up, you can make it such that each sales order has to go through an approvals process. So before you can release a sales order to the warehouse to ship it, someone else in your organization needs to review it and approve it first. You can also do comments or create and attach comments and attachments. One thing that I wanted to mention about attachments is this incoming document feature, which uses optical character recognition. So you can create, we'll shorten it to OCR, but you can create sales orders from PDFs or other types of documents using this OCR service, which is, Microsoft does have a version of OCR service, but there are others you can use as well that tap into to Business Central. But it makes sales order creation and purchase order creation, any sort of document really within Business Central, makes it really easy to create those documents and keep a track of the original document that the document was created from, that the Business Central document was created from. Let's see. So you can also create purchase documents from this sales order. So this is a great tool, especially as we talk about drop ship, which in Business Central terms really means that you are sending an order directly to your supplier. So let's say your China-based factory, and it's going to ship directly to your customer, right? That's in Business Central terms classified as a drop ship order, and you can create purchase orders from your sales order. So that's a really handy convenience. And then I should say also that your purchase order and your sales order are forever linked. Let's see. Using the Navigate tab, this is just handy to take you to any related shipments or invoices for this particular sales order. So again, in our partial ship example, if there was already a posted shipment or already an invoice associated with this order, which is generally connected by external document number or purchase order number, then those would be available to you here. We kind of just looked at the Functions tab. Yeah, we won't revisit that. Gosh, the internet is so annoying sometimes. So planning, demand overview and planning are going to be specific to demand planning. Order promising, we don't have this set up here, but order promising is something that you can use if you are going to commit an order based on future inventory, and you want to allocate it. That's something you can use order promising for. Warehouse, you can actually come here and create your warehouse shipment manually, or the warehouse can do it. Sometimes the warehousemen cross over into the sales order land for whatever reason, just depending on your operational flow. And then we again have posting here. We do have a pro forma invoice option, so that you can view or print the pro forma invoice, like for a prepayment situation, for example. And I think that's it. So we can look at history, interaction logs if you're using like a CRM, or if you're using contacts within Business Central to kind of track sales quote opportunity to sales order history. Each of those would kind of generate an interaction log, so you can see that here. And that's pretty much the gist of the sales order. I didn't talk a whole lot in detail about the item setup because I've done that in a prior video. But if there's something more specific about the sales order that you want to see or learn about, please do let me know. This video is almost 30 minutes, so I think I've bored you all to death. But I like to be fairly detailed and try to touch on as much of the meat and potatoes as I think is relevant. Yeah, so there's lots more setup that I can talk about, guys, but leave comments and or send me an email and I'm happy to follow up.